Hello everybody, welcome to Also Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and drop a like on this video. I'm trying to hit 100,000 subscribers. I think I'm going to say by the end of the playoffs. I think that's my goal, 100K by the end of the playoffs. So subscribe if you haven't done that already. It'd be much appreciated, and drop a like. And I also have to say, I'm specifically putting out a second channel video right now to promote the deep dive that I'm about to upload after this video goes up in about an hour and a half from when I'm recording it. So I'm doing I did a deep dive on what ifs and the problem with what ifs and how they affect NBA discourse, and I think it's the second best video I've made in the series after the Greg Popovich one. It's about 21 minutes long. It's the best production value I've ever had, the best editing I've ever had. So if you could watch it, it would be much appreciated. Look out for that on my main channel, assuming that you're subscribed to my main channel, because I guess it's feasible that you're not. 80,000 subscribers, I'm sure some of you aren't aware of my main channel, but anyways, this is one of the worst trades I've ever seen. And I obviously don't mean that in terms of scale, because Norman Powell isn't a good enough player to be like an all-time bad trade. But in terms of just obviously being the wrong decision, it's not so much in that this move is so cosmically consequential, but just the fact that everyone unanimously was like, what the fuck are you doing? What even is this move? It was universal that people thought this move was bad, basically. And it should be, because it is hilarious. So let me actually pull up the trade just so I can make sure I get the specifics, get it right. The Clippers trade Eric Bledsoe, Justice Winslow, Keon Johnson, and a second-round pick from the Detroit Pistons in 2025 for Norman Powell and Robert Covington. Getting Eric Bledsoe, who's basically expiring money because he only has $4 million guaranteed next year. Justice Winslow, who I believe is expiring. And Keon Johnson, who I asked a draft friend of mine, Noah Terranova, if you know of him. He's not a non-prospect, but he's nothing special as a prospect, and there's no projecting for him to be worth what Norman Powell is worth by any means. Otherwise, we probably would have heard more about him as a trade asset for the Clippers, and we didn't. I would think Terrence Mann would have more value as a trade piece than Keon Johnson, and he's obviously not on the move here. Norman Powell is really good. Norman Powell's like a 20-point per game on decent efficiency guy. Now, it's weird because some guys are like 20 points per game within the flow of the offense, and you don't really consider them star players as a result of that. Like Danilo Gallinari type is an example of that, not now, but in the past, where it's like, or what's his name? Now on the Knicks, Evan Fournier, a guy who scores 20, but it's just not in a star way, which is weird to say, but he was kind of that, where it's like, no, Norman Powell's not a star level player, but he's a really, really good offensive player, and definitely somebody worthy of, at minimum, a first round pick. And instead, you got expiring salary and Keon Johnson and a Blazers 2025 second round pick, which the second round pick could potentially end up being really high in the second round. So it's like the 35th pick, but it's still a second round pick. On top of that, you look at the history of this trade. The Blazers traded 2 first round picks to get Robert Covington. They traded Gary Trent Jr. to get Norman Powell. And they traded both of those guys for Eric Bledsoe, Justice Winslow, Keon Johnson, and a second-round pick. So they traded Gary Trent 2 first-round picks for salary, a young guy who's something, and a second-rounder. It's a really fucking bad trade. It's one of the worst I've ever seen. And here's the thing. A lot of people I've seen justify this. I say a lot of people, like it's 3. But I feel like this is the direction the discourse might go to justify this move. The justification being they're rebuilding, this is clearly a sign of the start of the rebuild, and I'm gonna title the video something like that. But regardless, even if that's the case, you still got fucking robbed. This wasn't a move to improve, because you don't trade 2 good NBA players, 1 really good NBA player, for a not great NBA player and salary filler and a second rounder to improve. So you clearly did this. They did this for money reasons, and then also to get off of Norman Powell's money, so that they can sign Anthony Simons without going over the luxury tax and that kind of stuff. But regardless, this is definitely a move made with the future taking precedent, and the Anthony Simons contract being a big indicator of that, because this move being for Anthony Simons' contract means they're getting ready to pay him probably the amount of money that Norman Powell makes, which is like $27 million a year. Either way, you could have got a better return. You could have just as easily made a move where you cleared this salary and you got a first-round pick. I'm sure there are plenty of teams who would have made this deal. If I'm not, no, that wouldn't work because he's on a bad team. I'm trying to think, like, maybe the Atlanta Hawks with Danilo Gallinari. Is Danilo's contract expiring after this year? It might not be. I think it's non-guaranteed after this year. But if you could do that move and get a first-round pick out of them, I mean, I guess a first-round pick for them would be dicey right now, but hell, if you got a lottery-protected Atlanta pick out of that trade, that'd be better than this. That's just me throwing like a $20 million expiring contract out there, assuming that Gallo's, I'm pretty sure it's non-guaranteed for the last year, but I could be mistaken. Either way, I know that there's a move out there that would have been better than this. Rebuild or trying to improve or trying to clear money. All three of those avenues, you could have got a better deal than this. But the one positive that comes out of this is that Portland is definitely, they have to be rebuilding. There's no fucking way you make this move and you're not rebuilding unless you have some all-time great ace up the sleeve that no one has foreseen. I would be surprised if CJ McCollum is on the Blazers after this trade deadline, especially because there's been a lot of rumors with like the Pelicans and stuff like that. And if CJ is gone, especially after this Norman Powell trade, Dame is being traded in the offseason, and that's the end of it. I think it's as simple as that. Dame is gone. And I'm not going to say that off of the Norman Powell trade, but if a CJ trade precedes this, they've officially made their decision. I made a video over on my main channel, go watch it if you haven't already, about the decision the Blazers must make, which is they have Anthony Simons and this potential lottery pick, and those are two great young assets. Do you trade them in a last-ditch effort to get Dame a ring in Portland, or do you hold on to the young assets and start off your rebuild on a really good foot because you have this young star, you have this lottery pick that could be a young star, and you could trade Dame for a young star? Like, your chance to start a rebuild on the right foot is about as high now as it has ever been, but your chance to put a star player next to Damian Lillard is also as high as it has ever been. So you have two really good options that you have to make the tough decision to make. You have to make the decision to make. That's great fucking sentence structure. The point is, it seems as though the Blazers have gone in this young direction, but it's feasible. They think we'll just run Anthony Simons at the 3 because I believe he's like 6'4", just like Norman Powell. So I guess maybe their logic is they can hold on to Anthony Simons and Norman Powell's gone, and they were already giving up a mismatch at the 3 spot anyways. But yeah, no. Can I also say this? Gary Trent Jr., I said that move was bad when it happened. I said trading Gary Trent for Norman Powell, who was much older and was going to have to be paid more, was stupid. And that's exactly what it was. Gary Trent Jr. now is pretty much as good as Norman Powell. He's averaged like 30 points per game over the last 6 games. Torched my Bulls the other day, hit a game-winning 3, or game-deciding 3, which they left him wide open, so I can't give him too much credit. It was a fucking practice shot. But regardless, Gary Trent Jr. is very good. Norman Powell is very good. The difference, Gary Trent's like 5 years younger and cheaper. And actually someone you feasibly could have held on to in a rebuild because he's like 23, 24. But no, you elected to trade him for someone much older. And when I said that trade was bad, whole bunch of Blazers fans came for my neck. In fact, I had to delete a tweet because I tweeted that it was a bad move and it got like 30 quote tweets within 5 minutes. I was like, I'm not dealing with this heat. Most of the time it's just like, this is not a hill that I'm willing to die on, so I'm not gonna go through a bunch of pressure over it. Like, if I fully believe something and it's a hill I'm willing to die on, then I'll go for it. But I'm like, I'm not gonna get killed on Twitter over the Norman Powell Gary Trent Jr. trade. That feels a little dumb. But regardless, I was right now, so fuck y'all. I mean, I'm getting the last laugh here. And then on the Clippers side of things, home run. I mean, there's not much else to say. This is a fucking home run. Robert Covington might not be here next year because he's on an expiring contract, but Norman Powell as a 2, and you put Kawhi and Paul George at those forward spots. One of them playing power forward, but in that modern NBA, that makes no fucking difference. That's a home run. It just is. Your starting lineup next year will probably be Reggie Jackson, Norman Powell, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Ivica Zubats, and then they have a whole ton of depth because they can feasibly hold on to Marcus Morris and Nick Batum, and they have like Terrence Mann and Amir Coffey who are breaking out, especially Terrence Mann, a fucking what's his name, the shooting guard who had that crazy shot in the Wizards comeback. The 2 crazy shots. Luke Kennard. There's a lot of fucking depth on that team, and they're really good. And they're not going to be playing like Kawhi and PG coming back this year. There's a slim possibility that they both come back, but it is very minor. But when Norman Powell's there, and then if they manage to bring Robert Covington back to come off of the bench, like that's some crazy forward depth, which is where you want to have your depth because they can play multiple positions. It's just perfect, man. The Clippers that was a home run of a deal. Like I said, it's one of the worst trades I've ever seen. But usually when I say worst trades, I mean one person got robbed and the other person got a steal of the century. Sometimes a worst trade is a trade where both sides get fucking a horrible deal, which is a very rare phenomenon, but when it does happen, it's very interesting. But regardless, point is, the Clippers got a steal. The Blazers are probably rebuilding. Go check out my deep dive when it comes out. Seriously, I need people on the front lines to click on that video as soon as it's uploaded. Appreciate it. Goodbye.